So this tutorial is really about changing the base template from Inspection Express from the rental minimum standards to a document which is really workable. I just want to run through the base template as it is. So this is one that's just been, I've copied it and I've stripped out the agency's name, but really it is incredibly basic, and unfortunately, too many agencies just use this as it is, and I don't think that it really protects the agency. It doesn't get the right information, probably doesn't protect the rental provider, but more importantly, isn't giving the information through to the renter. And I think if we just went through and just use this standard document, we might be in a spot of bother. So I've gone through and I've customized this, and this has probably been the most difficult document to customize. And what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll show you where I've pulled the data from. So let's just have a look at this one first off. So the very first thing we're looking at is the Tenancies Act, and I'll go through that in a moment and show you where the different sections are that we've pulled out, the information. But the regulations, so Residential Tenancy Regulations, Schedule 4, and here are the 14 standards: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, and some of them are dated, so some are relevant from specific dates. So for example, window furnishings, so today is the 29th of March 2022, so it's today. So window furnishings, so this particular provision comes in today, so this is one where we need to make sure. So from here on in, when I've created this document, I've just removed from the 29th of March, because from here on in, all the documents will be relevant. All the ones that are coming back will be relevant to this particular date. So I've gone through the schedule. I've gone through and I'll go through the different sections of the Act. I've used the base template from Inspection Express. As I said, it's not ideal. It's not a great document. It's a good format to use as a platform to be able to actually customize. So even just here in itself, so here's the name that it says minimum standards. My proposition is, and again, the whole premise behind all of this is we have to educate the renters, the rental providers. We have to also educate the renters, but we have to educate the rental providers along the way of not only the old Act, what they were required to do, but now the new Act. So it's really important, and you'll see this throughout. I've used a lot of references to the Act, I've used a lot of links, and very, very important. Our role as agents is also to educate the owners. So you don't want them to be filling in parts of this document and then sending it back and it being incorrect, only to find out that later on you've got to do the work again. And this is an area where I'm seeing lots and lots of. So with the disclosure statement, I really try to make it dumbed down, lots of information, so they could check it themselves, so they didn't have to then make a mistake, send it back, and we have to send it back to them. Okay, so minimum standards is what it is here. So all the yellow stuff just inside of here, that's what needs to be, that's what comes standard. Agency logo should already be there. Address, by now the document should already have your full company name as per the BLA, address, phone. This agency adds their email, which is good, and the ABN. It'll come down through to here, so the name there as well. So I've called it the Residential Rental Provider Rental Minimum Standards Statement to the rental applicant and or renter. So basically what I've done is I've tried to mirror the disclosure statement, because one of the questions in the disclosure statement, I think it's point 7, is does the property comply with minimum standards? So the disclosure statement has all of those points, and then one of those is this entire document. Now, the document itself is 8 pages, but when I've gone through and done the work through, it's 20 pages of text, but obviously it's got images in there as well. So I reckon we're probably going to be sitting somewhere around the sort of 13, 14 pages thereabouts. Okay, so the very first thing we have here is we go straight from the front cover straight into a little bit of a blurb. I'll show you mine in a second, and then we'll do side-by-side comparison. I just want to go through and explain a couple of things as to what I've got in the notes, because I haven't formatted the whole document here, because you'll see this in a second. So instead of just having minimum standards as a heading, I've got here, again, the education, owner's obligation to ensure the property complies with the minimum standards. So change the minimum standards heading from template from the template and up to the one above, and I'll show you the one in a second. And then there'll be a checkbox down here in a moment. Then we've got the locks. Instead of just having locks, again, we've got 14 standards. So one of the fundamentals of this one is, I feel, is it should have numbers. So rental window standard number 1 is locks. So I've got the text plate, a text Word document in a second, which I'll show you. Use numbers instead of bullet points and check that the links work. What I did notice was on some of the disclosure statements, instead of entering, I had backspace and the link didn't work. So when you enter it again, the link works. So before we're putting any links into these documents, please just go and check them on, put them into your browser and double check that they actually work. Okay, so inside of here, and what do I mean by that? Use numbers. So that would be number 1, and then this would be A, B, C, D, E, exactly. What I'm proposing is this. So let's just have a look at this as a format. I'm going to enlarge this. So let's just go to the number 1, and they'll all be the same. So we need to change the heading. So I've just put it in black there for now. And we're copying the text inside of here. Now this particular, the first one I've got, has a link to Section 70 of the Residential Tenancies Act, which is locks. So I've got the link in there at the beginning. But what we've got down here is inside of their template, we've got here, does the property meet your minimum standards for locks? That's okay. So that sits inside the box. Ideally, what I'd like to see, if we can, is to put it outside the box, because that question really links through to here. The next thing I've wanted to do is to put this statement on all of the questions. Now, every one of the questions has a different one of these, different statement. So if the answer, there's 2, for example, there's 2 questions in locks. I'll show you in a second on the Word template. If there's 2 questions, so it says if the answer to questions 1 and 2 is no, then the property does not comply with the rental minimum standards. So what we're doing here is we're giving them the information, we're telling them what the point is, we're asking them a series of questions, and then we've got a question here. So we've got a whole series of questions here. They'll know whether it's yes or no, and then it says, does your property comply? Yes or no. Now, yes, instead of having just yes and no, I don't know what the not applicable is for, so I've removed that completely. I don't think there's any that's not applicable on this, so it doesn't make any sense at all, so get rid of that. So what I've done is yes, it complies, or no, it does not comply. And on this particular one, yes to question 3. There is actually a question 3 here, 3E, which is around locks and heritage. The Heritage Act here, that's inside of there. So if the property is a registered place and you can't make any adjustments to the building because of the Heritage Act, that's when that would apply. So it'd be yes, it complies, but question 3E applies. So when you see the text, you'll see what that means. Okay, so then down below here, instead of just comments, I've got rid of that, and what I've done is if the answer is no, does not comply. Now on the text I've got that as in italic. If the answer is no, does not comply, RRP to provide further details to the renter. And then we've got what we should have is the box underneath here. So it just says comments. I've never seen, sorry, I shouldn't say that, hardly ever see any of the owners filling this in because we've just asked comments. Okay, so they just think they go tick, 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 tick. But what we want to be able to do is inside of here is this format, and this is the way you follow through for the rest of it. Change the heading, add links where possible, become an educator, ask the right questions. If you remove that question out, if the information inside of here is no, then the owner knows they've got to tick no. And what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to get them to say either if it's a yes, they're confident to do so, or no, they're not, and then we can fix the problem, fix locks, we can fix window locks, put blinds in, whatever it may be, fix up the heaters, whatever the issue might be. And we would, and then if it's a no, if they tick no, they know they've got to then answer down below. So I'm telling them how to fill the document in. Okay, let's just go through this one really quickly because it is pretty ordinary as a standard. Okay, this is what you've got to work with as a base template. So number 2, vermin-proof bins. That's it, one point. Toilets, and then we've got next one, bathroom, kitchen, laundry, electrical safety, mold, structural, electrical safety. Like this one has been abbreviated significantly. Now, I think maybe whoever wrote this for Inspection Express, they might be happy with that, but it's not meant, well, I don't think it's meant to be just a use it as it is. It's a template. So you really need to go in there and customize it, and which is what I've done. I spent a lot of time formatting this to make it incredibly compliant. Which will protect you. And again, you use this. This is going to even use these in your listing presentation. So when you're going out and you're listing new properties, use them in the listing presentations because there'll be very few other offices that will have anything that's as detailed as this and as compliant. And it shows the level of professionalism that you've actually gone to, as opposed to just what I do see. And I see offices just using this. Don't do that. Don't ever do that because it's actually the REIV's document. It's not your document. And in this particular one, I'll just go through this now while I'm here. It's got all this information, which is really, really good, but they're not reading it. They're not reading through here. Yes, no, yes, no. And down below at the very, very end, right, at the very end, there's nowhere for it to be signed. So here, got the property, it's got the date. It's not signed. So who signed it? When was it? Who was the person that did it? And there's no authorization. There's no signature, which again, this is a template. This is not to be... this is not meant to be a document that you would go out there and use in your office. It's meant to be a document you use as a template, which is what I've done. I've spent a lot of time on this. I've spent a lot of time on the Inspection Express. Inspection Express. I've spent a lot of time on Consumer Affairs website. I've spent a lot of time Schedule 4. I've looked at the Act. I've then gone into my own document that I created previously, and then I've also used experiences from other offices of when they've been using these, where they fall down with owners not filling stuff in. Okay, so lighting and ventilation, and then lastly heating inside of there. Heating, if you have a look at the heating on the Schedule 4, it's quite large. This has been abbreviated too much. This is actually quite good. You can download that information. It's a really good link, and it's one of the 5 documents from Consumer Affairs. That's the heating rental minimum standards. But again, we've got not applicable inside of there. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so let's just move away from this document now. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to split screen, and I'm going to bring this across. And bring in the Word document. Okay, so now we can run parallel. You're going to have the Word document to actually refer back to. Okay, so document type, minimum standards. This one's going to be used mainly for your new clients and your existing clients, sorry, because with the new clients, what I'm going to do is combine this and the disclosure statement together. Then when you get it back, you just print it separately, but you don't keep them together, you print them separately. What we'll do here, I do prefer to have the 2 separate, and if it was my office, then I would get one of these with this here on the front cover, and then one disclosure. I would do 2, but I am going to create one for agencies that want to be able to combine the 2 documents together and get them done at the same time. I don't necessarily agree with putting this into the owner's instruction form. It saves time, but we really need to go through and get the owner's instruction form, but then get this as separately. Okay, so all the information in here I've already covered off. Change the company name, ABN, telephone number. Okay, and double check the links. Okay, so this is what I'm saying here. Rental providers, responsibility inside of there to comply. I'm going to move myself into the middle in there. And I'll just spread that out a bit, make it a bit bigger. Okay. There we go. Okay. All right. So on the first page, so we've got first page, which is front page. On the second page, I'm suggesting this. So this becomes the next page, and we've got all of the links. Now again, remember, and where the issue was, so check for the disclosure statement, was when I was backspacing there to make it one line, accidentally, without knowing, I was taking away the hyphen, and that hyphen was making that link not work. So double check the links to make sure that they do actually work. Okay, so just got to double check that. 65A, yep, all good. So what I've included in here is the minimum standard schedule. I've included the disclosure because this does form part of the disclosure. So regulation 16 of the regs. So schedule 4, 16 regulation. Then I've gone 30D, which is the disclosure, 65A, which is the occupation of premises that don't comply with minimum standards, LOX 70, urgent repairs 72, and then 91L, which is the tenancy's right to terminate before taking possession. So I've got all of those links in there, and again, ideally, the owner would be having a look at these links. I'd like to think they would. They may not, but ideally they would. So if we come to the second page, okay, we've got minimum standards here. That's what it looks like now. Copy it across here, and this is what it will look like later on. Okay, so owner's obligation to ensure the property complies, in through there, get rid of that heading. Here's the information, and there's the link again. So I'm putting the link in there at the very, very beginning. I've then gone through and explained the 3 different lease terms. So a new renter, periodic, when a lease from fixed to periodic, and a lease renewal. I've got that in there. I've got a couple of little notes. And then down below, I've got here just the one checkbox, and it'll be underneath here where it says add checkbox. Down below it says, we have read the information provided and understand our obligation is to ensure the property complies with the rental minimum standards prior to the renter taking possession. Yes, they don't have a no. So it's only the one checkbox, and it'll just be inside of here. It's a yes. I'd be putting that on the outside of the box. Same as the others. Okay, let's just now go to number 2, so locks. Okay, so this is where the locks are here. Locks inside of there. So I've got rental minimum standards, number 1, locks inside of there. Rental minimum, I've just copied that there. So here's the text. So this is what you're copying here, and then straight off reference, section 70 of the Act, locks would go in here with the links, and then 1, 2, 3 questions. You'll see that I've used numbers and then the letters or Roman numerals instead of just bullet points, because then we can reference that back. And here it is here. If the answer to questions 1 and 2 is no, then the property does not comply with rental minimum standards. Here it is, there. And then down below, the 3 questions. Does your property, the 3 responses. Does your property comply with the rental minimum standards for locks? There. That'll be outside of this box. 3 check boxes. 1, 2, 3, and then if the answer is no, then they provide further information. You see how I've got it italic there? So hopefully we can change that. Okay, so now let's just go to number 2, next page. Vermin-proof bins. Okay, so this is just a copy of. So insert the text from here, and then we've got the checks box. Okay, so rental minimum standards, so that would be there. You're putting that heading. Then you've got 1 and 2, 1 and 2 here. Move the question out. If the answer to either of these questions, that sits inside of the box. If the answer to either of these questions is no, then the property does not comply with rental minimum standards. And then the question itself, is your property supplied with both a rubbish and recycling bin as required to meet the minimum standards? That sits here. Yes, complies. No, does not comply. Then the answer underneath would go there. So you can see the format of this one. Next one, toilets inside of here. So we've got rental minimum standards. Toilet sits there. The toilet must be. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and then A, B, C. So you can see here we've just got this information. Some of it's been pulled from the Consumer Affairs, some of it's just been modified themselves, but I'm not entirely happy with the way it's been put forward. Also, I've mentioned this on other documents as well, try where possible to create some spacing inside of here so that it doesn't look all squashed. I'd much rather have more pages, better format, easy to read than squashed and not easy to read. If the answer to any of these questions is no, then the property doesn't comply. It sits in here. Does your property comply with the minimum standards for toilets? Sits there. Complies yes, no, and then the answer underneath. So we've got bathroom. Now with bathroom, the actual section of the Act, residential regulations, inside of here, it's bathroom facilities. So it just says bathroom there. What I've done is I've gone with the facilities, exactly the same. And again, if you'll see the way in which I've got the questions here, I've read questions and tried to reread them and put the information in so that it is actually a question rather than the Act, which is a statement, but put them in as a question. So it's been complex to try and frame that, but I think it's okay, but feel free to modify it if you need to. But a rental property's bathroom must have a wash basin and a shower. Okay, the bathroom facilities must be connected to. If a shower is present, then the shower must have. If a shower is, answers to 1, 2, and 3. Does your property comply? Is there a basin, shower, or bath? No, that doesn't comply. Tick. Or question 4 about the shower head rating. If you can't put a shower head rating into a property because of its age, the type of plumbing, it says nature. It's written into the regulation. Then it still complies. Yes. Question 4 inside of there. So bathroom facilities. Now we've got so bathroom facilities there. Now we've got kitchen. Next page. Again, the number of pages for my text is really, I've tried to format one section per page, only to make it easier for you to follow and read. Minimum standards, number 5, kitchen facilities, 1, 2, 3, 4. So property, question 1, and then 4 questions after that. And then again here, if the property is a registered place because of the Heritage Act, then question 2 applies. So it's a yes, it complies, but doesn't necessarily have the proper information for the kitchen. Same format as the others, laundry facilities, inside of here, 1, 2, same thing, there are no laundry facilities. So this one I've referenced communal laundries, so that sits inside of there. 7, structural soundness, inside of there. I have actually created that as a capital as well. I've just created and capital D for damp and capital S for safety because they're headings. Is the property structurally sound? Is the rental premises weatherproof? I've broken those both up. So here it says, and this is where I've spent the time changing this. The property must be structurally sound and weatherproof. And it says, does your property meet? And here I'm asking them, is it? Not telling them that it should be, and then asking the question here, is it, with the questions, and then I've gone through. So again, I've had to try and reword this somewhat to make it a bit easier for them to understand what they're saying yes and no to. Mold and damp is the next one. Again, that's pretty straightforward. That's just a one question. Inside of there, complies, not complies. Electrical safety is a little bit more complex. Okay, so electrical safety, I just want to just go through here. So what I want to do is to bring this up. So let's just have a look at electrical safety here. So this is the electrical safety, and this is what I mean by, if you're just using this straight off the template, you're probably going to get yourself into a spot of bother. Okay, so let's just come back and get rid of that. Okay, electrical safety. From 29th March, all power points and outlets, that's next year, all power points and outlets, lighting circuits in a rental property must be connected to switchboard, Yep, wiring, switchboard, and 3 different types. That's it. Okay, but here, the actual regulations that we're bound by and the owners are bound by, on and from 29th March, again, no change. In relation to the electrical safety, or power outlets and circuits need to be connected to one A, switchboard with a circuit breaker, electrical installations as published from time, switchboard residual current device that complies with, and then you've got 1, 2, 3. And what they all are, here we've just got the actual code, which, you know, I'm a bit reluctant just to have the code, so I've actually gone and copied the same thing. And if I just move this off here, so I've got, I'll put at the top, note compliance with this standard is only required on or after 29 March 2023. Then we've got the points, and then if the answer to either of these questions is no after 20th March, then the property does not comply with the rental minimum standards. I'm going to change this to any of these questions. Yep, and then here I've got 3 checkboxes. So here we've got the yes, no, not applicable. What I've done is got yes, no, not applicable as yet. So hopefully we can change that and put that NA, not applicable as yet, and then underneath there, there. If the answer is no, then we're going to put this in. Lighting, windows, window coverings. Okay, so window coverings, as I indicated before, today's the date. So window coverings are, as of today, need to be able to be open and closed, openable and closable, openable, and provide privacy. So if you can't, if they're just sheer and go straight through, then that needs to be changed. If it's just a curtain, that needs to be changed. Needs to provide block out. Inside of there, that's it there. Minimum coverings, yep. Yes, no. Windows, and with the windows, I've gone back with the locks again. So I've put the lock section in. I won't change that. I've put the lock section 70 of the Act. I'm putting that into Windows again, and there's the 3 points inside of there. Lighting inside of there. So I've got 3 questions in lighting, and one of those is with respect to. So I've broken up this 2.5 lines into these questions, and I've copied this from the Consumer Affairs website. I've copied it from the Act, and I've copied it from the REIV document, and we've tried to mesh and mould them all together to make them compliant, and the Act as well. And we've got that one there for heritage. So we now move down to ventilation. Ventilation's a fair bit. Okay, so I've got some standards. So I've got the minimum standards there again, because we've got references here. Rental properties must have adequate ventilation. So we come across to ventilation. We've actually got the different classes. So we've got Class 1, Class 2. Class 2 is high-rise multi-unit developments, so townhouses with side-by-sides, up above, below, to the side, where you've got dwellings either side, and Class 1 is standalone. So you've got terrace homes, villas, normal homes, dual occupancies, those sorts of things, where you've got a generally, I won't say single level because it could be double level, but it's generally a standalone property without anyone next to them. So that's the difference between the 2 classes. And I've actually then gone and added the classes in there. Beside, that is correct. I've added the classes in there, so it makes it easier for an owner to know. And also the ventilation standards, I've also put those in there. And again, referencing back to the minimum standards. So that's all that they've put here. That's where the resources are. They've put the resources in, which is actually quite good. I've got that there. But if you have a look at that, that's 3. That's there. I've put that, 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 and that from this. I just don't think, I think it's too basic. So ventilation, and now the next one's massive. That's the heating. Only because, so that's the heating. So it's half. There's another link inside of there. That's the documents in there for you. That's a PDF. If you download that, that'll be a PDF. So again, same things. 14 heating, consumer affairs minimum standards for heating. They can download the document. This question is only applicable after 29 March, but before next year. So we've got all of this inside of there. Okay, so that's all of the heating. So that's probably going to go over 1.5 pages. And then I've got the answers. Answer to any of the questions on questions and sub-questions 1, 2, and 3 is no, then the property does not comply. And then we've got the signature. So I'm hoping that helps you come up with the information that you can put straight into here, because this is the one that this document and the disclosure document are the ones that the owners are struggling with, because they've not come across these things before, and a lot of real estate agents are struggling with understanding what the disclosure requirements are or what the minimum standards are. So if real estate agents, and this is our job, don't understand it, then how are owners meant to understand it? And our role, initially when I've prepared these documents in the first couple of times, the role was that the agent would be speaking to the owners. But what I've found after doing this now for over a year is they're not. So what's happening is the agents are just sending out an email and saying to the owners, fill this in, then they're getting it back, they're not even reading it, and then they're just saving it. So what I've tried to do, this is version 4 or 5, I've tried to actually make this as educational as I possibly can to make it easier so that the owners, one, can find the information, they can find all the links, but then secondly, they can complete it properly, and then we don't have this back and forth. So best of luck with it. Hope it all goes well, and hopefully you found this information useful with all the text on the Word doc. Cheers.